There is an abortion case coming up before the court. Well, first, can you tell us what it is? And then I'll ask you about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this case, I think, actually has a really good opportunity for the court to reverse the fundamental holding of Roe versus Wade. And so the question is whether it is unconstitutional for state legislation to decline to have an abortion that is beyond the point of viability. And so when you look at the certified question here, the question about abortion is basically saying, is this a state issue? And so when the Supreme Court is looking at this, I think it's very fascinating that the current composition of the court has actually taken up this case. And that, to me, is very hopeful that they are going to give this issue back to the states at minimum. And we have to remember that this whole idea, this leftist talking point, that Roe versus Wade is settled law or that there is a constitutional right to abortion, that's completely not true. The Roe holding itself simply said and set up this, what they called the undue burden test, which is that the government's compelling interest in protecting life has to be weighed against a individual's right to privacy in some abortions in some circumstances. As we've had medical advances, as we understand more and more what the truth of God actually has told us from the very beginning, that life begins at conception, that a human being, no matter how small, is a living human being, then as the science reflects that, we're now revisiting at what stage even this privacy, this so-called privacy issue should attach and should override, and I think it never should after conception, the government's compelling interest in protecting life. So this is not a federal constitutional settled question. This should go back to the states and allow states to determine their own law concerning this issue. And I really have a lot of faith and confidence in our Supreme Court. I hope I'm right, that they will hold a very strong opinion to that effect.
It's just amazing. When the left loses elections, they want to get rid of the Electoral College. When they lose the majority in the Supreme Court, they want to pack the court. When they lose the argument, they want to silence free speech. They just have no capacity to just say, hey, this is a free country. Sometimes we lose the game. One of the things that is happening is this genuinely mafia-style attempts to intimidate the Supreme Court and to intimidate the Congress about the Supreme Court by threatening to pack the court. Well, first of all, I should just ask you, how real do you think that is? How dangerous a possibility is that?
It is possible, unfortunately. I mean, so the Constitution doesn't provide for a specified number of justices on the Supreme Court. I actually agree with 1983 Joe Biden, who said it's a bonehead idea because the judicial branch needs to be independent. The separation of powers is for a reason. But if the Democrat majority wants to change the Judiciary Act and create new seats and pack the court, that is something that would be constitutionally viable, even though from a policy perspective, of course, it's a bad idea.
I like the way when you mention Joe Biden's opinion, you have to give a date and time because we need to know which opinion it is at any given moment. So one of the best things about the Donald Trump presidency, if not the best thing, was the appointment of, 3 Supreme Court justices and a new conservative majority. Just speaking generally for a minute, how are you feeling about this court so far?
Well, I think it's really fascinating to see that they've actually had a couple of 9-0 opinions just in the last few weeks. And why haven't those been in the news? Well, because that destroys the narrative that this is a purely partisan divided court. So I think that, again, the Republic is actually doing better than the mainstream media would say that it is. We don't like Joe Biden, but this particular court is doing its job. And we do have a conservative originalist majority that hopefully will continue to interpret the Constitution based on the rule of law, even in the hot button issues like abortion and like church cases and religious liberty, for example. And so I think Trump's greatest legacy from his first term will be those 3 Supreme Court justices, as well as over 200 federal judges on the bench.